Mm.
And we introduced it in the business in about 2008, Gresh. And so we've had the Dreams program ever since then. So in my mind, that's definitely part of our secret sauce. And I think, when we look at the fast growth that we've gone through and the fast growth that we are planning, protecting the culture is probably the single most important thing. And I think this our dreams program and focusing on what people really want in their lives is a part of our secret sauce. And I can tell you now, there have been times where we've done acquisitions and the interpretation has been that this is some grand scheme to manipulate them. And eventually people realize it's not a fad or it's not a gimmick. This is in our DNA. And then the second part of our secret sauce, I think, is as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you've seen it in your journey too, we never arrive, So if I go back 10 years, how easy it was for us to find customers and close new business. When I look at the level of marketing investment, it has exponentially changed. So the need to differentiate is more important for my type of business than ever before. And so fortunately, we have quite a detailed, involved strategic planning process that makes us look quite hard in the mirror. And if I gave you insight into how bad our organic growth was in 2019 and going into the pandemic, you would, it looked cataclysmic. But we reinvented ourselves, we reinvested, and we've ended up now with a truly differentiated offering that actually started. The early investment of that started in June of 2020, and we're now 2 years past, and now that offering is at a level where it's unbelievably exciting and I think truly differentiated. So one, our dreams program and focusing on what our people really want in their lives, I think is part of our secret sauce. And number two, having a strategic planning process. And it's not the fanciest process, but it's an honest process where we really look at our strategy and what we're doing and decide as a team what we need to change.
Nice. I absolutely love those, aspects of the secret sauce and, especially the dreams program where, you used the word earlier, infuse. And I've always heard, work-life balance. I like to say work-life integration, but I love that word infuse because it really becomes a part of the essence of every aspect of it. You're not just pulling two things together. It actually is going hand in hand and it sounds like it's dependent in it. And I absolutely love, what you said about the strategic planning, but the phrase that really resonated with me that you said was looking in the mirror. And I think so many times as individuals, organizations, if you don't create that space time to look in the mirror, whether it's the most elaborate plan or the most elaborate thing, but a lot of times we're going from thing to thing to thing that you don't really create that space so that you can say, hey, this is what we're world class at, let's double down on that, or this is what we're not world class at, let's get away from that. And either of those things is extremely powerful.
No, and that point, so out of every strategic planning process, we end up with a list that is too long. And one of the hardest things is to say these are all the things we're not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that discipline, where we've honored it, has served us so well. In the years where we haven't been disciplined, Gresh, and I can think of a couple that I'm personally responsible for, it's hurt us. So that discipline to focus on what we agree is also just helps build that momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine that definitely helps supports the culture as well too, when everybody on the team knows probably where and how they're aligning with that overall parts. But it's so funny you mentioned that discipline because there's this quote by Steve Jobs. I think he talks a lot about innovation. He says innovation is not the things that you decide to do. A lot of times it's the things that you don't decide to do, because that long list, if you try to innovate in all those ways, you end up being overextended. People are sometimes confused. So it's so important to kind of trim that list, trim the fat, so that you can focus and truly, be world class and innovate.
Yeah, 100%. It's a guy that mentored me in my younger years. His name's Trent Rossini, just an amazing entrepreneur and leader. And I remember just talking to him about this particular challenge, and he just said two questions you need to ask for any major strategy or or initiative you want to drive, is it someone's day job? So is someone's day job, and are you going to invest in it? Because what we used to do in the past was we'd say, this guy's so good at running that department. Why don't we just give him this other thing too? And I'm sure he can make a success of it. But through experience, we realized he can't.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that guy is happy as well too, and being able to kind of say, okay, this is not the day job, or it is, and then be able to kind of lean more into that.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Yeah, that's I would definitely lean on personally, and I feel it just emanates into everything I do in a day. And I feel it's unbelievably powerful in dealing with the times where you feel so alone and frustrated and demotivated as an entrepreneur or as a person in general. I use a gratitude journal every day. I get to it most days, and it's really 3 sections, at least 3 points on what I'm grateful for, and then 3 things I want to make sure I get done today, and then an affirmation statement. So you can buy it in book form either on Amazon. It's called the 5-minute journal, or you can get it in an app. It's free. And I just find it, instead of looking at my phone first thing in the morning, I'm going to my gratitude journal, and instead of looking at messages and so forth and that, the first thought for the day is gratitude. And then I find myself, because that's how I started the day, I find myself almost looking for it in the day, because that's how I started, and that was the initial seed that I planted. And then the other one that's really just had a huge impact on me, and this might be less unique, but when I'm meditating, whether it be 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes a day in the morning, particularly in the morning, the quality of my thinking and the quality of my listening is exponentially greater. And there's and I think I mentioned to you in the chat that we had it, you have this in the way you listen. It is such an active way of listening that it actually amplifies the quality of people's thinking around you. And there's a great book, if you ever wanted to kind of dig into the idea of your leadership culture in your business as a CEO. And why is it that those really gregarious people always talk up so quickly, and some of those really thoughtful, pensive, more introverted people never speak up? There's a great book by Nancy Klein called Time to Think. And it's about the quality of the listening in your culture has an impact on the quality of the thinking. In turn, what people feel will be, they can contribute and will be heard.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And it's so funny that you mentioned that, because when you mentioned the meditating and being able to kind of listen, ask questions, do all those things that kind of come from that, I immediately thought more of, the leadership piece, and how having that exercise, for lack of a better term, you start to really see that become an underpinning of the culture. You start to see how that manifests itself. As are your leader that says, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you're not listening to the feedback, you're not listening to maybe the clients, the customers, whatever that might be. And I love how, practical that hack is, but I love how that can manifest itself in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I absolutely love too the meditating, the piece where you mentioned about the gratitude, because I was gonna actually ask you, do you feel like once you start to practice that, gratitude ends up being like a muscle? Because even when we were speaking before, where we talked about, these are the people that helped me open up doors, you immediately said, hey, I need to do a gratitude exercise. So I wonder if that is a strong underpinning of how you start to think too.
Yeah, no, it is. It's it was my cousin's birthday the other day, and in the early days of my business, there's so many of these stories, but I didn't really have money for a reasonable car, and I'd crashed my car, and he had given me his car with like a very favorable payment plan. And there are all these examples, and yeah, it's a muscle that grows and develops. And the